All right, let's dive in. Today, we are looking at a really fascinating and super concise take on what our feelings are all about. We're calling this emotional motions, and it's all about completely reframing how we think about what's going on inside of us. So let's see what this perspective has to offer. So, the text we're digging into today kicks off with this really powerful and, I think we can all agree, very relatable statement. I mean, we've all been there, right? That inner storm when a feeling, anger, sadness, even something good, just lands somewhere it really doesn't belong, and it just creates a mess. And this, of course, leads to some pretty big questions, like, why does this happen? And hey, if there's a wrong place for our emotions, then logically, there has to be a right one, doesn't there? This is the exact puzzle that this piece of writing sets out to solve. Now, our source here is just a few lines long, but wow, it builds this incredibly complete argument. So in this explainer, we're going to walk through that logic step by step to really get our heads around its pretty unique take on emotional resolution. Okay, so let's start where the text starts, with the problem itself. Let's talk about the chaos of emotion. The core idea here is that the pain we feel doesn't actually come from the emotion itself, but from its misdirection. Think of it like a river, you know? The water itself isn't the problem, but if it gets diverted from its natural path, you get a flood. So the problem isn't the feeling, it's a problem of aim and destination. All right, now for the really interesting part. Let's get to the central metaphor the text uses to reframe this entire problem. This is where it all clicks into place. The text is basically asking us to make a pretty radical shift in how we see things. It's saying, what if we stop seeing emotion as this static state, like I am sad or I am angry, and start seeing it as an active force, like a vector, something that is always moving from somewhere to somewhere else. And that gives us our key term for today, emotional motion. It's this idea that every single feeling has an origin point, a path it's traveling on, and an intended target. And that chaos we feel, that's just what happens when that path or that target is wrong. And here's how we can make that abstract idea feel a little more real. You see, just like a physical object in motion has a source, a direction, and an impact, an emotional motion has a trigger, what kicks it off, a projection, that's where we aim it, and an effect. Understanding this parallel is really the key to the whole argument. But then the text adds another layer to this whole analogy. It starts to introduce a sense of order, almost like a set of rules. It's claiming that for every single motion, there's a proper context, a specific time and a specific place where it actually belongs. And that brings us to the solution. If our emotions are just motions with rules, then figuring out how to solve our inner chaos becomes a matter of learning those rules and, applying them correctly. So the text's logic leads us to this three-step process. First, we have to totally reframe that feeling as emotion. Second, we have to recognize that this motion has its own appropriate time and place. And finally, and this is the crucial part, we have to consciously direct it to what the text calls its rightful ground. Now, this is a really critical point. The goal here is not to suppress your feelings or just make them go away. No, the energy is real. That motion is happening no matter what. The key is to channel it, to aim it at the correct destination where it can finally be resolved properly. Okay, let's move into the final section and see how all of this builds to a pretty profound conclusion. This is where the text takes its own logic to its ultimate and maybe most surprising destination. So the argument has been building up to this one final crucial question. We've established that emotion is emotion and that it has rules. But what's the fundamental nature of that motion? The answer the text gives is what defines this entire perspective. So the text makes this incredibly bold claim. It's not just any motion, it's an eternal motion. This suggests that our feelings have a weight, a significance, that goes way beyond just the immediate moment. An emotion on that scale would logically require an equally profound destination, right? And there it is. That's the final piece of the logical puzzle. The text concludes that the rightful ground, the one and only destination that's capable of handling an eternal motion, is the eternal God. So, just to sum up the whole argument we've just unfolded, if emotions are eternal motions, then logically their only true and rightful place for resolution is inside an eternal context. Any other projection, according to this text, is that wrong place that just leads us right back to the chaos we started with. And that's where this whole explainer leaves us. We followed a single line of reasoning from a simple, relatable feeling of emotional chaos all the way to a deeply theological conclusion. It really leaves us with a final thought to carry with us. What does it truly mean in practice for one of our feelings to find its home in the eternal? Thanks for joining me on this one.